Hello, we're going to take a look at Zwift World Series Yorkshire Double Loops. A little bit of a route scout here. Some of the elevations posted on this make it look really climby. In game, it's actually not that bad, but I'm going to show you what that looks like. As a note, if you want to do this yourself, you can. The way I do it is I just create a quick workout called World Changer. It's about a 10 to 15 second workout, 10 second. Pick the route that's closest to where I want to be. In this case, it's Tour of Tewit well. And that will set you off going the right direction for Yorkshire Double Loops. Workout is over very quickly, and then we just continue. As we go through this, I am going to have to make some manual turns. I'm going to run the video probably at a faster speed normally, but I'll slow it down for where those manual turns need to be made to keep you on the route. But that's about it. More to come as we go. The Harrogate Springs turn is correct for the route, so we just keep going here. Once you make that turn, you're going to take your first climb up Yorkshire Calm Reverse. As a note, I'm going through this loop here. I'm kind of just doing a zone 2 ride for most of it. It's part of the reason I'm speeding it up so you can get a quicker look at the route. But this climb during the race, I imagine, depending on fitness, I mean, it's going to be a lot quicker than, well, I guess it depends on fitness. But I expect to take this climb during the race more in the between 2 and 3 minute range versus the 4+ minute range. It's definitely got a little punch to it, but yeah, this is definitely not epic KOM or something like. It's not a 20-minute climb. It's fairly punchy, short climb. But yeah, we get up to the top of that again. Be quicker during the race. But then, as this course goes, there's a ton of descent in it as well. So even if you have to, take yourself a little bit, not to max HR or anything, but empty the tank a little bit or light a match there, you get a good descent and rest before you have to climb again. You can definitely super tuck here if you're out in front, or you just stick with the draft. But yeah, there's plenty of rest, and the climbs aren't really as long as that initial route profile made it look. This isn't a named climb here. This is fairly gradual. Again, there's definitely, if someone wants to push it, there's certainly opportunities to do some fracturing of the field. I'm sure on the pro races, you might try to see some breaks on some of these here, especially the one that's upcoming, where you can see on the right route profile at the top right of the map where it goes a little bit red, that next climb. That one I could definitely see someone trying to push a little bit. But the thing is there's so much descent here that trying to break early, it's going to be challenging, I guess I would say. It's definitely rolly, but because of all the descents where you have a chance to catch back on, you can probably fall off the back a little bit. But yeah, as far as if you're trying to scout this on your own, this whole section here is just a big long loop, so there's no turns required. It's fairly straightforward. Yeah, we'll pick up here as we get to the next part. Here you can see the flashing orange and red, but yeah, it picks up. This is steep gradient right here. This is why I said here's an area where it's not a long climb, but you're seeing it, in the high teens there for a little bit. I could definitely see a push here, because there's not an immediate descent after it as well, so you do have some time to make this stick and get a gap before the next descent. So possible moves might get made here. My fitness and the group that I'm riding in, I'm just gonna be holding on to the front basically. I'm not gonna try to be making any moves at this point. There's another. Effectively, you're gonna have to do this whole thing the other direction. So consider this lap 1 effectively. I mean, the other lap goes again clockwise versus counterclockwise, but unless you're trying to do an early break and hold on for a long time, I think that'd probably be where most folks are. Yeah, here the descent's not quite as big. Again, it's somewhat flat, but you can see on my HUD in the center, or you look at the top right, but you can see your 0.4%, etc. And then sometimes you'll see a little bit of negative on the drop rate before the next climb, but it's fairly flat in here after that. The real descent comes after this next short little punchy bit. So we'll watch that. And this 6%, 7%, nothing too drastic, and not too long. Again, consider that I'm riding this zone 2. I mean, these climbs are going to be shorter in duration. They're going to be harder in watts, but they'll be shorter in duration. They're really not that long. And again, after that, you know, the big climb that came before this, a little bit of flat, a little bit of a respite, that little punch, and then real long descent here. And this is going to loop back around pretty close to where we started. That's sort of the tour of Tewit well part of this. As we come around, you can see the start pen and the mini map. We're going to be coming past that. I'm going to end up slowing the video down here in a second, because once we come through that, because this route isn't in game, we're going to have to do a manual turn, and so get ready for that. When you come up against that, I'll show you what that turn looks like. So we're given 3 options here: Harrogate, Millionaires Row, and Cairn Hotel. We want to make the right turn for Cairn Hotel. What we're doing here right now is we're kind of doing the Royal Pump Room version, or part of the route. This is going to loop us around this small little segment here, and then we're going to go back around Yorkshire in the opposite direction. There's another turn that comes up, but I'll show you what that looks like as we get to that part. This part of the route it's a little up and down. There's nothing, again, catching a 6% descent here, and maybe gets up to 5 or 6, 7. But low gradual bits here. Nothing too dramatic. Again, I suppose if someone wants to push here, they could. I would look at this as the first half of the race. It's about 28 kilometers, 560 meters of elevation. We're coming up right when we get to the intersection again. We're going to be about halfway, so I expect it's going to be fairly calm during this section. Maybe somebody pushes, but fairly rolling. Nothing too dramatic. I am going to slow down the video here and again in a second, because if you're scouting this before the race, there is another manual turn that comes up, and we're going to want to make sure that we do that correctly. What I'll tell you about that is it's that 3-way or multiple intersection. You got Harrogate as an option. You want to take the straight option here and not left or right, and now this is going to start taking you back clockwise around that big long loop, the opposite direction we came the first time around. So yeah, the big loop here, we did it the opposite direction. It does change the profile a little bit. We'll see that as we go around. Also, we're now in the second half of the race where people are more likely to attack, but as we enter that loop coming back around, that's the start pen right there, so we're now sort of officially going the opposite direction. And right off the bat, you kind of hit sort of a long grindy climb here. Again, consider I'm going zone 2, so this will go by a little bit quicker. It's not a named climb, but again, just sort of a long stretch, like a long slow grind, with a small descent afterwards. But you can see here I'm sitting around 2.5% or so. It does kick up here a little bit at the end, but then it is a very steep descent, so not too much. Again, because we're towards the second half of the race, maybe people a little fatigued, there's certainly an opportunity to try to get a gap here. So you kick up to 4%. Think, yeah, maybe it gets a little steeper, but the main thing here is, like I said, this is, you can see sort of the time I'm taking doing it, but at race pace, this will go by quite a bit quicker. For me, I'm still in hold on mode here. I'm gonna be drafting. That's probably just who I am. I don't have a great 20-minute power, so be as efficient as possible. You catch this descent. If you're in the front, it is steep enough that you can super tuck, just for awareness. Again, I'll probably be back in the draft, but you can carry that speed up into this next little punch. And again, this is not too steep. I wouldn't even call this a hill. It's just some rolling terrain. The reason I think you probably don't, again, who knows how different people will go, but this next descent that's coming up is super steep. I honestly think the next real attack where you start people trying to make something that sticks to the end of the race will be upcoming at the first time we hit Yorkshire Calm frontwards here in the middle of this section. But and then of course the finish is going up Yorkshire Calm reverse, which we'll get to that when we get there. But yeah, this part here, I'm just gonna be riding efficiently in the draft. At least I hope I will be. Hopefully I haven't been dropped off the back before then. But again, here another steep hill, another opportunity to super tuck if you're in the front. If you're not, just stay in the draft. Otherwise, the whole pack will zoom past you. Again, rolling, not a named climb here. Short little punch. I'm gonna guess people are gonna carry speed from the descent into this. I do look at this lap going back around fairly calmly, probably here, as people are reserving for the next big piece here up on Yorkshire Calm. But yeah, 3% up there at the end, and then we're gonna catch descent here. I think, yeah, you can super tuck down this if you were in the front again. It takes a little bit to catch some speed. You'd have to ride over the apex, but you could get the speed and super tuck here if you were at the front. And when it gets a little bit steeper here, and I'm showing that again. I'll probably just be drafting, but definitely want to carry speed though from the bottom of this into Yorkshire Calm. Here's where I do see, yeah, potentially some people could try to make some hay and push. We're getting definitely towards the back half of the race. The route profile that you see in the right is a little deceptive because there's going to be some turns here that come up. The back half is there's this punch, which it's going to be taken at a pretty good pace. Definitely be holding on. Probably have to burn some matches here because people are going to be aggressive on it. There is a descent after it, which helps. So yeah, if you got to burn a match here, you got to burn a match. It is what it is. And if you're just slightly off the back, you do have some chance to catch on a descent. Again, I expect this is probably going to be much more in the 2 to 230, something like that. People going up that, but in terms of minutes, depends on again what pen you're in. But another opportunity. All these descents are pretty steep. You could super tuck again if you're at the front, or me going to be sitting in the draft. I'm going to slow the video down here in a second because there is another turn if you're scouting this and not in the race that you have to do manually. And again, this is Millionaires row. You finally do want to make that left in this case versus going straight or right. You want to take the left on the Millionaires row. And here we're heading around that bottom section now in the opposite direction that we did the first time. Much the same. The profile is not that much different here. Again, it's fairly flat, like 2%. I think people, if someone's formed the gap on Yorkshire Calm going the other direction, they'll be hammering. If not, yeah, you'll just be trying to draft. But there's definitely some chance to rest here, potentially, depending on the state of the race, on this fairly flat part. There is also going to be another manual turn you have to do here right before the end of the race to get to the final climb on Yorkshire Calm Reverse. That's where some fireworks are certainly going to go off if it's still close. But yeah, there's just some little small punchy climbs here. Nothing too dramatic. Again, and then at the end of the race, you could definitely start to see someone try to make a little break there if they haven't already. Just try to take some steam out of the legs before we get to Yorkshire Calm. But here I'm going to slow the thing down a little bit because you do want to make sure you take straight Harrogate Springs if you're scouting this beforehand. Race will make this turn for you, of course, but this is right here in terms of the race is where it will begin to get serious. Right into Yorkshire Calm Reverse, and I had a feather here, and it was the end of the scout, so I decided to take this more, this might be race based depending on how gassed I am, but not at 100%, but I definitely tried to put some legs on this just to get a sense for how long the climb might be at race pace at the end. But if you got matches, this is where you're burning them. I mean, there ain't nothing left. Hopefully we'll be holding on, or maybe trying to, best case, making a break for the win. But yeah, it's gonna be hard for sure, this part. And right around the turn is the banner, and that's it. That's the course. Had final on tired legs after a race. That final bit will be rough.